Good morning, Bitcoiners. I hope you're doing well. I'm loving my life. Who could complain on a day like today? Things are going great. Tom, good morning, Bitcoiners. Good morning, Tom. I don't know how you got your thing there before my system is registering any viewers. So there you go. It does take a minute, right? It does take a second. But we're okay with that, Tom. Coming in from Rumble. Rumble's first because we're broadcasting on Rumble, so I guess they get those ones a little quicker. But, oh, there we got some Rumble viewers coming through, not just Rumble comments. There we get some YouTubers coming in now. More YouTube comments already than YouTube viewers, apparently. Good morning, Dean. I hope you're doing well. Aqualodge, good morning. Good afternoon, Lucky. Hold on, where's that? Ah, there we go. Lucky, good afternoon. Good afternoon, Lucky. I guess you're in Europe. I hope things are not too hot over in Europe. I hope it's not 26 degrees still. I hope it's not 80. I don't know how you're going to make it. Good morning, my dears, Bitcoin Deb. Good morning, Bitcoin Deb. Indeed, I hope it's not too hot in New Hampshire. P-Man, hi all. How you doing, P-Man? We got John Clance coming at us from Pikes Peak Front Range. I'm going to look that up right now. I don't know where Pikes Peak Front Range is, but it sounds interesting. Pikes Peak. Oh, I see, in Colorado. That is a beautiful place. I realized once that I was living in Colorado Springs. Very neat. So I have one of my closest families that we go to homeschool with. He's a like Space Force lawyer, and he was at the university here in Montreal doing Space Force whatever. But they're moving to the next deployment is Colorado Springs, so you never know. I might end up there. I had another thing I was going to say. Anyway, I don't remember. Enmity. Good day, Nolan and team. Indeed, Enmity. Indeed. Pepitoche Lecu says, Chatelet count, you beautiful patriot, you. Gonna be one hell of a summer. It's the best summer so far. It's so good. Ben, good morning all. Good morning, Ben. Lucky. People don't talk about it, but it's hot in Israel too. People don't talk about it. I wouldn't have guessed. I didn't know that. I'm not subscribed to the New York Times or the Washington Post, so I don't know where it's hot in the world. It's impossible to figure out. We're going to talk about it today, of course. Veterans Cannabis Morning Breakup Breakfast Crew. Bitcoin Breakfast Breakup Crew. I'm dyslexic this morning for some reason. Matt, good morning. C. Berger, 17. Howdy, howdy. Edwin, good morning, all Bitcoiners from Phi Die. Edwin, I will likely it's not confirmed, but I'm trying to rent PubKey on either the 30th of July or the 29th. I can't remember exactly what day, but I'm talking to them now. So I'll let you know, Edwin. And we're going to be launching some RGB++ tokens with our Bitcoin science fiction novels. So I'll let you know. I'll let you all know what's going on that day. We're going to have some food and fun. I got the menu the other day. Lots of good food there. And they're getting rid of the seed oils. I told the owner last summer when I met him, or last year at the Bitcoin show, I mean, come on, let's do it. Let's get rid of the seed oils. He did it. He said it'd be too expensive. I guess he found out a way. So good for him. Very good news. All right, everyone. Let's just acknowledge that we've got a major sunrise on our hands, and I'm bringing some proof of sunrise here. Got some proof of sunrise today. There we go. A little bit of proof of sunrise, right? That was a little while ago. I'm going to start trying to, when I do these slideshows, I'm going to start putting the proof of sunrise photos that I take every morning there. So there you go. Sun is up, right? We're doing great. The sun's up. The false flag, right? We're talking about flags today. So it's not just the American flag that's down. The false flags are up. We're going to be talking about false flags today. And Bitcoin's running. We're doing great, everyone. Let's have a coffee and talk about what's new. There we go. All right. I know you guys are waiting on the edge of your seats. Where is it hot? I don't know where to go today. What am I going to do? I got to hide from the heat. We got all kinds of news about the heat, right? We got this one. This is a question. And Bitcoin Deb, you're in New Hampshire, so maybe this affected you. I don't know. Right? But where is it hot? The first one up today from the Washington Post. Why was Maine sweltering, they ask. Right? Why was Maine hot in June? I don't know. Why? Why was Maine sweltering? Why? I don't know how to answer this question, guys. I mean, here's what they say. A shifting weather front and climate change temporarily turned the temperate state subtropical. So subtropical is like, in the 90s. So, I mean, we can't quite figure out why in late June, why was Maine sweltering? It's a philosophical question. It has nothing to do with the weather or the seasons. It's just why? Why was Maine, where I regularly take my beach vacations before I used to go to Barbados? I used to go to Maine every year. And every time I arrived in the summer, I would say, why? Why is it hot in Maine? Why? But here they said it. It's not. Now, you might have been an idiot and thought because the shifting weather front was called summer, right? You might have thought it was called summer. No. It's a shifting weather front, okay? Not summer. It's a shifting weather front and climate change. All right, it's not summer. Come on, get out of here. Maine. So we answered it. Why was Maine sweltering? It's not summer. Nope. A shifting weather front and climate change turned a temperate state subtropical. It's totally true. Now, we got another one here. Okay, so we've been saying when it's hot now, right? The news is providing us with a little prediction, right? I think they're right. So when I say that, your worldview is affected by your ability to predict, and if you make a prediction, it was accurate at the time, well, they got this down. I think they figured it out over at the Telegraph. I don't know why the UK is so curious about where we're talking about next, but who knows? They got it figured out, right? So this is what we found out from the Telegraph in London. Watch out, Texas. August is coming. August is coming to Texas. And guess what? Green energy won't keep your air conditioning on. It's going to be hot. Okay? It's going to be hot in Texas in August. No word on July. I was just there. It was hot when I was there. No word on July yet. We're not in July. We're going to have to wait. But we know, and this was AI, right? He says now with AI data centers in the mix, the numbers have been upended again. So it's going to be even hotter in Texas in August. What is the world coming to? I mean, it's good thing the English are on it, right? Because they had their extreme 80-degree temperature the other day, and it was really tough for them. So they got to watch out if it's coming their way, right? They got to watch out if it's coming their way. Now, where else is it hot? Where else? We know it's hot in Maine, right? Maine's really hot. We heard Texas in August, no word on July. But it's not just that. According to the Washington Post, billions of people, right? They're saying here, billions of people just felt the deadly heat intensity of climate-fueled heat waves. Billions, right? And guess where it's still hot and they got other troubles? India, guys. India. Climate change makes India's monsoons more erratic. And now they wonder, can farmers still find a way to prosper? I don't know. Farming's hard, but it's even harder if the monsoons are there. And because of climate change, the monsoons are they're bigly monsoons now. They're bigger than normal, right? They're going to be bigly there. Now, it's not just India that's hot, and it's not just Texas in August, no word on July. It's not just Maine that's become subtropical, not because of the summer, but because of the shifting weather patterns and the climate change. This is a big one, though. This is where another place where it's hot, okay? Prepare yourself. Sit down, everyone. Sit down. This is going to be breaking news. This might break the internet. It's so crazy, right? Guess what? Summer camps now. Summer camps. Look, according to the Associated Press, summer camps are having to adapt to more frequent heat waves, right? So summer camps now, hot there too, guys. It's Hot in the summer camps. Hot in summer. There you go. Another place that's hot. Now, you might think NASA is like looking into space where it's really cold, right? You know, NASA's looking into space and it's cold there. So normally the weather thing and NASA, right, they go to space, you know, normally they're like not so concerned because it's space and it's not hot there unless you go to the sun, right? But normally space is okay. But sometimes when you're in space, you can look back at Earth, right? You can look back. And NASA did that. They looked back. And what did they find? They said the seas, now it's hot in the seas. They said the seas are important drivers of Earth's global climate. Yet increasing greenhouse gases from human activities, according to the Space Agency, are altering the ocean before our eyes. We can see it. We can see it. It's getting hotter, right? From warming to rising sea levels. Learn how the ocean is changing. Thanks NASA. Thanks, NASA. Finally, we got a little more of the heat, but you might be wondering, right? Because we already heard the AI predict that in Texas in August it's going to be hot, and we've seen that Maine is subtropical, and we've seen the summer camps have to adapt, right? When will it end? When will the heat end, right? Well, Canada let us know. Canada, CTV News has the scoop, everyone. They have the scoop. When will it end? Never! It's never going to end! Now, some people in the comments said September or October when the shifting climate patterns change again. But I don't know this year, guys. It's been so hot. I think CTV News is right. When will it end? Never. It's here forever. It's only hot now. That's it. It'll never be cold again. So that, I mean, some people said this is fake because the weather's not going to change that much by September, right? But I mean, it's never going to end. Never. So what can we do with this, right? Now that it's never going to end, we gotta adapt even more. How can we adapt, right? What are we going to do? Well, they got some advice for us in all these newspapers, right? We got some advice. We found that we're going to have more forest fires because summer and the heat is never going to end, right? And we've seen that fueled by climate change, extreme wildfires have doubled in 20 years. They've doubled because of all the heat. And now we've asked, Washington Post asking this too. They're wondering, it's hot, right? They asked the question today. They're doing some science in the Washington Post. They say it's hot, right? But how hot, right? It's hot. And they say, but is it hot enough to fry an egg on the sidewalk? So they did the experiment. They asked scientists, right? They got the science because it's so hot. They asked all the scientists. We asked scientists to help answer a question that's been asked since the phrase became popular in 1899, right? It's hot enough to fry an egg outside. As it turns out, the conclusion is not overly easy. That's what the Washington Post said, right? They got a bit more advice for us to adapt to the never-ending climate change. Expert advice. So we got the experts wondering, doing experiments, and the scientists to see if they can fry eggs on the sidewalk, and they're not sure. But this is more practical for you guys, okay? They're saying here, expert advice on how to protect your house plants as temperatures soar, right? Because the temperatures are soaring, but inside your house, it's going to affect them too, right? So they say, how do you deal with the house plants now? What are we going to do about the house plants? And they're saying that you got to water them, all right? So the experts are giving you some pretty good advice here. They're saying water them, right? Keep them away from sunny windows, okay? And they say actually just buy a cactus. Just buy a cactus, okay? Because we're not going to be able to, this is too much. I mean, it's too, I can't follow. I couldn't figure out what to do with my houseplants. They already all incinerated. I mean, I left them near a window. I left them near the window. They incinerated. They're dead, right? They're all gone. So I don't know how I'm going to adapt, but that's what we got. Now, we've been talking a lot about this over days, where it's hot in India, and everyone says it's climate change, but I don't know how to compute this next story. This one really happened. I just don't know. It says that we've been accidentally cooling the planet, and it's about to stop. This is from the Washington Post yesterday. So I'm confused. It's hot in Maine and other places, and it's hot in Texas in August, and the summer camps are hot, and the houseplants are dead, and the forest fires all the forests are burning, but I guess now it changed a little. They're saying it's actually cooling the planet. right? Human fossil fuel burning has cooled the planet while warming it. Okay, so it's both cooling it and warming it, right? And now we've got problems in the future. Okay, all right, that makes sense. It just makes so much sense, right? All right, now I got a couple more fake news stories here. They're all pretty good. We got some Phil Bump action, right? Oh no, hold on. This is it. So I've been doing the heat. I've been covering the weather to start, like the heat and what's going on. Where is it hot, right? That's been a really good Moscow time June series. I'm going to be adding a new running Moscow time section. I love all these stories about the Supreme Court, right? All the ones where the Supreme Court needs more judges. These are my new favorite. Okay, you're seeing them. I'm getting almost one a day now, right? And this is from the Washington Post. So we're gonna follow all of these now. Okay, we just have to follow all of this. Like, you gotta put more people on the Supreme Court. We're gonna follow all those stories in Moscow time. It's a really good Moscow time story. So this is what Alexei McCammon says. 2 years after the Supreme Court overturned Roe versus Wade, Democrats have an opening to debate reform measures for the court. It's an opening. They have an opening, okay? Such as term limits for justices or expanding the number of seats, right? So I'm going to hear more of those. We're going to start slowly. That was the first one. I only have one for today, but we're going to be getting more and more of these stories about what to do with the Supreme Court. It's so dysfunctional. What do we do with it? Right? We got to figure it out. We got some Phil Bump action here, right? Phil Bump says, allies of Donald Trump have painted themselves into a cognitive corner. A cognitive corner. No, Biden won't be on performance-enhancing drugs, he says. Experts on the subject note that there is no drug that will temporarily mask cognitive decline. So it's fine, guys. He has no... Come on. It's going great with Biden. He's no card. Come on. They've painted themselves. He doesn't have cognitive decline. Trump and his supporters have painted themselves into a cognitive corner. Okay? It's not the decline. It's the cognitive corner that the Trump people are in. All right? Get it straight. Who's got the cognitive trouble? Now you know, right? Now you know. This one's really good. Okay. This one's really good. Now, I think I even read this one. This comes from Foreign Policy back in January, so I don't remember if I read it then. But I'm bringing it back because Jesse Palmer, his name is Beijing Palmer on Twitter, decided to share this yesterday. And it's the way he shared it that I found really Moscow-timey and perfect for our show. And he says a reminder. He says it's a reminder that it is perfectly common. It's perfectly common for democracies to indict and convict former leaders, and often a sign of a healthy democracy. Right? So it's time to remind us, a reminder, right? It's actually common to indict leaders in democracy. It's common. It's okay. Don't sweat it. Right? Nothing to see. It's totally good. Totally fine. And now this is my favorite one, which will lead into our story for the day and our theme. This is the Washington Post, and it's my final Moscow time story of the day. Attorney General Merrick Garland on Tuesday decried a proposal from House Republicans to slash the Justice Department's budget by nearly $1 billion for next year, saying such cuts would risk undermining progress in reducing violent crime nationwide. Sad day, right? When sad day when Congress won't give the Attorney General $1 billion to stop crime. A sad day. So there you go. That's our theme for the day. Now, that's our Moscow time for the day. Pardon me. Our theme for the day is false money leads to false flags. And I wanted to mention that story about Merrick Garland. That's why it's the last one in Moscow time today, because Merrick Garland, the Attorney General, is out there saying, how can I fight violent crime without the $1 billion? What am I going to do? Same time, right? This is what we found out from Kaneko the Great. This is what NBC News reported yesterday. This is what a few people have been reporting yesterday. He says, Kaneko the Great writes, 50 illegal immigrants brought into the U.S. through an ISIS-tied smuggling network are unaccounted for by DHS. DHS identified over 400 illegal immigrants brought to the U.S. by this ISIS smuggling network. Over 150 have been arrested. but the whereabouts of more than 50 remain unknown. Many of the more than 400 migrants crossed the southern border and were released into the U.S. by Customs and Border Protection because they were not on a government terrorism watch list. The revelation comes after ICE agents arrested 8 men from Tajikistan in New York, Philadelphia, and LA this month over suspected ties to ISIS. Another illegal immigrant from Uzbekistan was arrested in Maryland in April over suspected affiliation with ISIS. How many terrorists have slipped through Biden's borders unnoticed, asks Kanekoa the Great. So the reason I mention this is because more and more people are talking about false flags, right? And that's kind of what this looks like. Now, I don't know if you guys have seen Candace Owens. Candace Owens has been, after she left Daily Wire, has launched her own show. I don't know what episode she's on now, 5 or 6 or 7 or 8 or something like that, maybe 8. And she's done 2 now on 9/11. So she's done 2 episodes, a follow-up on 9/11 yesterday, going into a lot of what we learned from Julian Assange, for example. She talked about the video that's sort of been repeated widely, one of the biggest things he did. I remember watching that live, the helicopters attacking civilians in Baghdad, and how funny it was, and ha ha ha. And that was a big moment for me too, because I remember in South Korea in 2002 when I lived there was a very famous story, and it was actually kind of dodgy and sketchy and dangerous for all. It was a time when you were proud to say you were Canadian, let me tell you, because it got you out of a lot of trouble in Korea. Because when I was there, what happened was there was a terrible story of a tank convoy heading up the road in Korea, some rural place in Korea. And the tanks were all driving, and there were 2 schoolgirls on the side of the road that the tanks were passing, right? Now, I have no idea what happened, but it was a big scandal in the country because one of the tanks legit, and you can see because of the tracks, goes off right where they were and runs them over. You can imagine the goriness. It was awful, right? Don't have to know more about it. And then he goes back into line, and they said they never noticed. So turned into this big trial. They were deemed innocent. It was an accident. Maybe they were. I don't know. I wasn't. The trial was a military trial. It was very secretive. There were no details. It was not a public trial at all. I don't know what they discovered, but I never forgot that because it was hard to believe they did it on purpose. You sort of gave them the benefit of the doubt, right? Even though I met with a lot of soldiers over in Korea while I was there, all of them said probably deliberate because of how scummy a lot of the people they send to Korea are. Korea, at the time, was such a low priority for America that they only sent the lowest IQ soldiers there. That was what the soldiers themselves told me. So I don't know if any of that's true, but that was the impression it leaves you. And so this story became really bad. I remember, trying to go to a movie one time, and I came out of the subway going towards the movie theater, and it was like a big vigil. And I walked into this vigil for that, and everyone was like, "Rrr." I had to be like, Canada, Canada, Canada Jin, Canada San. I don't know, Canada Gook. That's what they say. So the word Gook, which you've heard pejoratively from the Vietnam War, that actually comes from Korea, and it just means person. So a Hanguk is a Korean person, and a Migook is a American person. A Younggook is an English person. A Weigook is a foreigner. That's a gaijin in Japanese. So I would say, Canada Saram, Canada Gook, right? I'm a Canadian. Don't do that. And so they would always, so sorry. They were very clear that it wasn't a race thing. It was a country thing. And that's what was going on. So anyway, that was a long tangent to say that when I first saw this Assange video in 2010, when it was released, it made me rethink what I saw in 2002, and the benefit of the doubt was erased then, right? There was already suspicion because the tracks were pretty bad. No one else comes out of line. You don't just turn a tank and then back. Like, it was as disgusting as the thing when you heard the audio in Baghdad. That was the difference. The audio of Baghdad, it wasn't the guns and the shooting. There was audio. You could hear the radio. And that's really what was terrible from what Julian Assange shared, was that you heard them say, light them up. And when the rescue crew comes in to get all those people who'd been shot and maimed, and they said, shoot them too. And you could tell it was a video game to them. It was literally a video game. And you had never heard those things said before. You'd never heard it practiced before like that. Now, I don't know what went on in their lives before that. Who knows, right? It's easy to take a video and say, terrible, terrible, terrible. I'm sure it was. What it did, though, is it changed my idea about what happened in 2002. It changed my idea about what these soldiers are all about, what their capacity is. Now, I don't want to blame stupid, low IQ US soldiers for the situation they were in and the trouble they found themselves in. It's more complicated than that, of course. We all know that, especially with the amount of brainwashing that was going on during 9/11 and in the aftermath. This is 2002, obviously. So when you're talking about what they ended up doing in Iraq later, shooting those people, like I said, it's not that simple, right? I'm not defending them. I'm just saying it's not that simple. But hearing it nevertheless allows us to not have to hallucinate that it's possible for soldiers to dehumanize people to that extent, and American soldiers in this case to dehumanize people in that extent. We hadn't really understood that before, right? You always thought because of movies, American soldiers were this, American soldiers were like that, they were the heroes, the good guys. And when you saw that, you realized, nope, not even close. So when you put those two things together and you start thinking about where we're at and what's going on, especially with what we found out from Candace Owens from her show, right? Now, she has been going on about the 9/11 stuff. She was laughing at the passport story, which is insane, right? That a passport flew out of an airplane. Now, the thing that she was talking about, remember, this idea that soldiers were capable of killing civilians made me reimagine what I saw in Korea. But this is the low-level soldier thing, right? Candace Owens yesterday was talking about false flags at a higher level. And she was talking about, for example, Kennedy. Kennedy was asked, in his time, the President Kennedy, to do a false flag against Cuba. They offered him after Bay of Pigs. They said, what we're going to do is we're going to kill Americans. We're going to kill them, right? We're going to kill some Americans and we're going to blame it on the Cubans. And that's going to change American attitudes. And it's going to allow us to go into Cuba and to fight them. And obviously Kennedy was like, you're crazy, right? This is not long before he died and was killed by these people. So the capacity to do something like a false flag is there. Now, a lot of people believe 9/11 was exactly that, right? It was exactly that, because what we saw from Julian Assange from the 2000 leaks were that Afghanistan, everything in the aftermath of 9/11 was really about money laundering, and so is Ukraine. Right? The whole thing was a money laundering operation. The point was to take money from the American taxpayer and send it to the American security state through these fake wars. And that everything to do with 9/11 was 100% about reigniting the money laundering engine that went away after the Cold War. Now, it made me think, and Scott Adams had a really good way of putting this yesterday. I'll show you what he said. So yesterday, Scott Adams was talking about the system that we live in, and he called it a hoaxocracy, right? And he says it's not a dictatorship, definitely not a republic. That's not the planet we're in. This is what he wrote. Our so-called republic elects its leaders based on how successfully the corporate news keeps the truth from Democrats, literally. For example, the entire news-watching portion of the Republican Party recently learned that left-leaning Snopes ruled the Fine People's Hoax to be a hoax. No media outlets that are followed by Democrats mentioned it, and it was by far the biggest story of the week, given the upcoming debate and the fact that Biden ran for office based on promoting the hoax. And two of the hoax promoters are the debate hosts. We don't have a republic. We have a hoaxocracy. This is literally our form of government. Maybe it always was. So I love that statement. It's a hoaxocracy, right? And the hoaxes are sometimes false flags. They're sometimes false flags. And in general, we've seen the hoaxes since Trump became president, the Russia collusion hoax, the Charlottesville hoax. It was hoax on top of hoax on top of hoax on top of hoax. How long has the hoaxocracy been going on? I mean, Kennedy is at least the as far back as we can say for sure it's been a hoaxocracy. Watergate, a hoax. All of that was a hoax. Right? All of these things have been a hoax. Since the 60s, we've been living in a hoaxocracy, a theatrically induced cognitive nudge in order to push people one way or the other to defend our democracy and to support our system. Now, this whole hoaxocracy works because the false flags are funded by the false money, right? The money itself, the money laundering stuff that Julian Assange mentioned, all of that is what is required to fuel the hoaxocracy. Only fake money with no feedback loops that helps support a military industrial complex, that helps wipe out opposition, that helps target them, that helps with overwhelming force to push down any other belligerent that would change the hoaxocracy's capacity to be 100% saturated in toxic lies. So the hoaxocracy needs a fault tolerance that we talk about all the time that's very, very high, right? You can't have a lot of people that see outside of the hoaxocracy. So in order to do that, you need overwhelming military force. Otherwise, it would fall apart. Otherwise, other countries would be too afraid to tell the truth, and they would get targeted like Libya or Iraq or any of these other places. So the hoaxocracy is completely built on these fake stories, and it's completely built on just layering one hoax on top of the other and perpetuating hoaxes forever. Now, that looks like it's coming to an end. It's coming to an end because the cost of violence, the predicate for this money laundering regime, has everything to do with, again, taking huge sums of money from the American taxpayer and funneling it over to the security state. And the security state needs to justify this because of the large costs that they incur with our fake security. But the mathematics of violence are changing. The math behind the false flags are changing, right? So what we did after 9/11, we sent the jets, we sent the aircraft carriers, we sent everything, and it was shock and awe. Remember shock and awe? Without shock and awe, the whole thing falls apart, right? Because the American military can't advance the hoaxocracy's goals to create new venues for fake conflict and money laundering. And so the Wall Street Silver has a little bit about that today, just about how much, and this is a prediction we made a long time ago here on this show. This is one of the most important things related to Bitcoin and hyper-Bitcoinization and the separation of money and state. And it's a prediction I made at the very beginning. So I made this prediction on the breakup in January or February 2022, right? And I'd already thought about it before, but this is what I said in January 2022. And Wall Street Silver catching up here. He says, talking about the Ukraine war, and he says, the Ukraine war has made obvious that the era of tank warfare is now over. If a $500 drone can kill a $10 million tank, tanks are obsolete and won't be built. Next up, naval ships is what he says. Imagine 1,000 drones costing $500,000, sinking an aircraft carrier, $13 billion. China knows. Elon Musk answers, absolutely. So I've been telling you this. I've been telling you that you will see a beautiful aircraft carrier melt into the ocean, and it will be drones all around it just having a party, right? That we're going to see this in our lifetime. Maybe this summer, right? So Wall Street Silver continues, I can guarantee you that China is building millions of drones and planning strategies to eliminate the U.S. Pacific Fleet at any time they choose. They will send 1,000 kamikaze drones for each and every U.S. naval ship anywhere between China and Taiwan. The risk will be so high that the U.S. Navy will be forced to stay way out of range. I think that's what's going to happen, right? I think that's almost obvious, right? So with that change in military capacity, let's say, with that change in the cost of violence, the ability to fuel and fund the hoaxocracy is actually threatened, right? It's threatened now. So because the military projection isn't as powerful, you need more psychological projection, right? That they sort of go hand in hand. If you can't do the military stuff, you do the theater. And so now we're moving more and more towards the theater, which is why all of the laptop stories were there, right? They need the predicate to that. Remember the laptop story, the Hunter Biden laptop story was about seeing the money laundering flows to Ukraine, seeing that was the predicate for war, seeing that had a lot to do with the logic of going in there to protect American energy interests and deep state interests and things like that. And so there was a reason why the deep state wanted all of that stuff over there. And we found out, like we didn't know already, like Bitcoiners weren't aware of this. Major breaking news. New information shows CIA contractors colluded with the Biden campaign to discredit Hunter Biden laptop stories. So we've known that for a long time, right? The 51 known liars and this and that, right? Cernovich writes, CoinIntel Pro never ended. That was the CoinIntel Pro was the, I guess you could say a bunch of illegal covert projects and if you look at the Wikipedia page, conducted between 56 and 71 by the FBI, aimed at surveilling, infiltrating, discrediting, and disrupting American political organizations that the FBI perceived as subversive. So that was communists, anti-Vietnam War, civil rights. This is where everything begins with the Bank Secrecy Act, where our ability to have private transactions ends, right? So that they can watch financial flows to find out where dissidence was coming from and where they had to clamp down. Now, the repercussion of more fake news coming out, more psychological operations, the repercussions of that are that the cognitive dissonance of American people will only increase, right? Now, there is good news there, right? So when I say the cognitive dissonance of Americans will only increase, as you've seen in my books, The Bitcoiner's Guide to NPC Management or The Bitcoiner's Guide to the US 2024 Elections, cognitive dissonance is one of the only ways we can stun the NPC character. We can stun the fiat sludge person into seeing a different world, right? So at once, the increased psychological warfare against Americans seems bad. It is. But it also creates a situation where they're going to be basically spasming psychologically, and they're going to be revealing their fleshy underbelly for the one of four possible ways things go when you have cognitive dissonance. And they're all in my board, which is an old board, but we've shared it again today. And this is what happens to the human mind when you have cognitive dissonance. So cognitive dissonance comes from having two opposing ideas in your head. Now, if you don't care about the two opposing ideas, you can totally keep two opposing ideas in your head. If they're not important or not relevant, your brain doesn't get that effed up by it. But cognitive dissonance happens when you attach one of these opposing ideas. If these two opposing ideas coexist, their coexistence actually affects your ego and your idea of yourself, right? So that's why credentialists have a lot of problem with cognitive dissonance, because generally it means that the credential they have, upon which most of their earning power is predicated, is useless, right? So there's a lot of people that have trouble with this. Now, this is usually what happens when someone is experiencing this type of cognitive dissonance, right? They can deny it. They can say, no, that's fake. That was never said. And you're seeing more and more of this live, because you're seeing more and more live debates. You've seen David Pakman has gone on a few shows in the past couple of weeks trying to have debates with conservatives, and I commend him for that. He's at least showing a lot of appetite to engage with people. So I appreciate David Pakman doing that, even though he's got some of this. I saw Michael Ian Black, the actor, go on Scott Adams yesterday. Now, you don't need to watch any of this content. It's actually terrible, right? Because you're just seeing someone have cognitive dissonance. But if you want to see cognitive dissonance live, you can watch these debates. You'll see people have it, right? So there's really four things you can do. You can deny a thing. You can reduce the importance, right? You can say, each of these things gives you a dose of dopamine. That's why I've got dopamine there, right? You can deny it. You can reduce its importance. You can add importance. That's the hallucination effect, right? Or you can change your mind, right? You have a choice, right? You can change your mind. That's one of the four instances. Now, what's happening with this money laundering thing and false flags and what we've seen with that, right? We're going to see Kennedy. Kennedy is going to join the debate, by the way, on Thursday, right? So, and he has a very clever trick of doing this. He's going to create a triple split screen and answer questions on his own while the other two are there. So he's going to use technology to overcome the restrictions both Trump and Biden have put on him as a participant in the debate, right? Now, I get why I don't think Trump has a choice. I think he has to agree with what the Bidens are asking for to not put Kennedy on the debate platform. Kennedy showed Trump a lot of respect when he's talking about the debate. He says that Trump is basically the greatest debater in America since the U.S. Civil War, since Abraham Lincoln. He said that at our show at Bitcoin 2023. He reiterates that all the time. He does not underestimate Donald Trump's power to debate, and nor should he. He's right. Donald Trump is the greatest American debater since Lincoln. He's never even come close to losing. He's wiped the floor with every single person he's debated with. He made Hillary look like an idiot by the Juanita Broaddrick thing of bringing the other rape victims that that Clinton brought was one of the most amazing things I've ever seen, because it's so rude and it's so it's just it's Trump in a nutshell right there. So he predicted here that So Kennedy predicts that he is going to win a prize of the greatest debater in modern history because he demolished 16 Republicans one by one using extraordinary techniques and unmatched entertainment skills, right? And that's really what it is, right? It's entertaining. And he thinks that it's impossible for Biden to beat Trump in Thursday's debate. Now, it doesn't matter. People are going to just say, oh, Biden did great, right? They're not going to, unless Trump makes him eat the Charlottesville hoax and he kills him right there on the floor. And he just discombobulates and breaks down. But I don't think that can happen. That's why CNN is holding all of the security rails there. But here you go, right? So the idea, again, that the cost of violence and the cost of all these hoaxes, you've got a debate now that's going to take direct aim at war. You're going to see a direct aim at the money laundering stuff. I think Trump gets the money laundering stuff. I think Kennedy gets the money laundering stuff. When you've got two candidates against one talking about the money laundering, when you've got two candidates against one who are more interested in global peace, when you've got two candidates that are talking about the false flags that are now apparent throughout American politics, we can see now it is a hoaxocracy. Does it go back to 9/11? It's not looking good for the people who believe that we were some victim of jealous people who were jealous of our democracy and all. That's not what happened. Okay, that's not what happened. I don't know what happened on 9/11. If you watch Candace Owens' thing, it looks more and more like a false flag, right? Now, that's the documentary effect. Anyone can hypnotize you by stringing together an argument and saying this looks like this and that's bad and this is what happened. The same can happen with the Kennedy assassination, right? But the point is, the net result of all of these false flags is the no feedback loop money. The money that is private for the elites, but not private for us, right? The Bank Secrecy Act again. The 1964 thing that made all of the money and all of financial flows a problem for you and me, but not for the people who are on the receiving end of the laundering, right? The deep state and all these people. But all that's about to change. All of that is about to change. First of all, they broke the money, right? So they've broken the money. And second of all, you're now seeing Bitcoin becoming on par for payment of taxes and things like that in America. Now, I'm not a big fan of taxes. Right? It's not what I mean. But Matt Gaetz yesterday has tabled a bill after having spent time in El Salvador. Remember, Matt Gaetz was the envoy of the Republican Party to the inauguration of Bukele 2 weeks ago, whatever, in El Salvador. And Matt Gaetz was the person who went down there. Looks like he had a private audience with Bukele. Came back. I've never heard Matt Gaetz talk 1 second about Bitcoin. He came back and now has tabled a bill that would allow Bitcoin payments to be useful for federal tax. Now, it sounds boring, right? It sounds boring, but it's actually a big step. It's a big step because America is entering bimetallism. It's entering a period in which we have money for the sludge people and money for the rich people. And once you separate money that way, once you have it for the sludge and the stupid, and you have it for the rich, what you're going to end up getting is the flywheel of the fake money, false flag, the false money, false flag, direct flow will be broken. It will be broken. Because if not everyone's paying taxes in US dollars, now I understand they convert, we got the treasury, but all of that is secondary to the larger flows, the larger picture, the larger trend, where you're going to see way more financial accountability than ever before, right? You're not going to be getting the flip side of this, right? The flip side of this is that is the story we see from, let me find it here. The flip side of this is the story we see from Rolling Stone today, right? Which is that 16 Nobel Rolling Stone. This should have been in Moscow time, but it was important for my theme, so I couldn't put it there. 16 Nobel Prize economists released a grave warning that Trump's plans for the US economy could reignite inflation if he wins in November, right? So these 16 economists. So the good news about this is that we're seeing Bitcoin infiltrate the American system. It's breaking all kinds of stuff. It will continue to break all kinds of stuff. Indeed, I do think Trump's plan will increase inflation for the US dollar, which we're sacrificing to the sludge people to pay for all the bugs cooked in seed oils that they're going to have to live off of, right? So the economists that I see here, these guys are getting a meal ticket, right? We're giving them a meal ticket in US dollars that indeed, they're right, will be inflated. But it's not going to be paying for the drones. It's not going to be paying for the aircraft carriers. It's not going to be paying for the military anymore. All that money is going to be going to the bug diet of these economists. They're going to get a CBDC, which will only be good for the US inflated dollar. It will only be able to buy foodstuff and other stupid consumables. And it will be perfect because they'll be able to get their bugs. They'll be able to cook them in seed oils. It'll be canola oil. Crickets in canola oil will be the number one thing they have to eat, or maybe cockroaches. Cockroaches in canola, crickets in canola. They're going to love them both. They're going to have them as chips. They're going to have them as a hot dog. They're going to have them as a hamburger. The bun is going to be made of crickets. The meat is going to be made of cockroaches, all cooked in seed oil. They're going to love it. And that's how the false flag stuff comes to an end. Because if you're false flagging bug-eating food stamp earners, you can't pay for a war. You can't pay for a war with bug eaters, right? That's not going to work. And there's no way that any of the rich people and any of the energy companies are going to keep going along with this. They're going to have to defect. They are also affected by the cognitive dissonance stuff, right? This stuff applies to everybody. So the ability for people now to make these choices, and now that it's about money, you can't deny some of this. You can't deny when you're poor eating bugs. At a certain point, reality bites. It hits you, right? You can't reduce the. It's not that, it's just small countries that are into Bitcoin. It's just American taxes, right? It's just Texas that's into Bitcoin. It's just the presidential candidate who's leading by a lot that says he's going to put the U.S. balance sheet on Bitcoin. It's just not that, right? Oh, but Biden has a plan. That's the adding importance. None of this stuff is going to work, right? The cognitive dissonance, the end of cognitive dissonance for the fiat sludge people is one of four situations. All three of these lead to bug diets. This is their only way out. That's it. That's the only way to end it. Now, a lot of people are not going to choose that. That's okay. This is not a democracy. Again, it's a hoaxocracy, right? And the hoaxes need money. They need the fake money. If they don't have the fake money, the hoax doesn't work. If no one's making money off the hoax, there's no point, right? They made a lot of money. If it's true what people are saying about 9/11, then a lot of people made a lot of money, right? And all of the hoaxes since have resulted in so many wealthy people, exactly as Assange predicted, exactly as Assange underlined. But it looks like with Kennedy in the debate, with Kennedy in this thing, we're not going to be able to forget about the start of the hoaxocracy. We're not going to be able to forget that his uncle tried to stop a false flag where our own government went after its own people. They said we're going to kill our own people and blame it on the Cubans to change American minds. Now, is that any different than, for example, I saw this from Jordan Peterson yesterday, right? Or a couple days ago. Jordan Peterson says, I've never recovered, he said, from the food pyramid scam, right? I've never recovered. And many people have never recovered. Once you find out that the US government is willing to kill you on a long-term basis in order to make fake money to pay for its fake false flags, and that's the system you live in. You live in a hoaxocracy that is designed to make a few people a couple bucks and to funnel and fund all of this stuff. Once you understand that, right, and you get cognitive dissonance as a result, there's only so many avenues you can take, right? You can eat more of the fucking seed oils and the shit food pyramid that they offered us until the 80s. You can do that, right? You can say, oh, it's just a food pyramid. Oh, it's just a few, right? Or you can say, oh, actually, right? That's why they love saying actually, right? Actually, they're stuck in this maze, and there's only one way out, and that's to change their mind. So more and more are going to change their mind. The hoaxocracy's fuel and funding is over, and I can't imagine this stuff getting figured out, right? So there we go, guys. Winning and winning and winning. Who wins a three-way election between Trump, Biden, and Kennedy? Trump. Kennedy has a path to win, but, you know. Actually, Sergio, actually. Yeah. I like Pepitoshi LaQ says, I like my crickets crispy on the outside, but juicy and tender on the... That's what some people say, yeah. Thanks for the optimistic breakup episode, Nolan. Thank you, Lance. What odds do you give Trump versus Biden? You can't put odds on things with no rules, because with no rules, it's not predictable. So there you go. CNN's style to debate is isn't really debate. Yeah, it's an entertaining joint press conference. That's a good way of putting it. Yeah, I like that. Nolan, any chance you watch Steve Greer on the P? No, I will. On government suppressed technology innovation. No, I will, though. Robert, should I go to Argentina? It's a serious question, and I need to answer it today. I would go. I mean, I love Argentina, man. But I don't know what the cost benefit for you is. Good morning from PA. Love Rules says, having a heat wave. I was in awe of how shocking it was. Today is the presidential. So is today? No. Is today Thursday? No, today's Wednesday. That's tomorrow. Fake news tidal wave. I think it's tomorrow, Veterans Cannabis. After the last 4 years, you could tell me aliens from Uranus infiltrated our nation and possessed, and I'd believe it. No kidding, huh? No kidding. We also need a space drop emoji. Yeah. How he didn't get whacked in prison. I think it's because everyone's watching, right? This is good. Pepe Toshe says, Babylon B wrote a story saying he's going to prepare his debate with dementia patients. Bitcoin Dev says, I can't with these nuts anymore. Yeah, it's pretty bad. I hope we still have a winter here in Florida. Dean says, maybe we'll be told to wash our hands longer. Yes. The lakes are boiling. Summer camps should be canceled. Summer is hot. 90 degrees, yeah. All right, just going through some of these. All right, team, I got to go to Vermont today. I got a few things. Is the bendable iOS mobile sign of lodging innovation? I don't know. I haven't seen it yet. It's the heat. Severe climate change in Puerto Rico. Until I won't go to a doctor. Yeah, the cholesterol thing's ridiculous. I can't still believe they go along with it, and my family is still on statins. It's crazy. People don't even know that, like, officially, the cholesterol thing has been said to be bullshit. Austin asks, who is the best Trump VP pick? Hard to say, Austin. Really hard to say, because remember, the VP is often the stupider, less shiny version of the president, right? Like that's what Biden was to Obama, right? You don't want someone detracting from you. That's what Mike Pence was. And even the Mike Pence thing is so many backroom deals that go on with vice presidents that it's just hard to predict. Now, some people say that Vivek is too good to be the vice president, right? He's too talented. But I think with an old fella like Trump, he is too old. Like, let's never deny that, right? I think he's obviously not, he doesn't have dementia, and I continue to think he is one of the most entertaining performers in the world. And I love the guy, but I want someone older, younger, and I don't want him doing a bunch of shit when he's president. I hope he just focuses on cities and making them beautiful because he likes real estate. I want Trump to do an Eisenhower 1950s campaign or a presidency where the vice president, in Eisenhower's case, it was one of those rare instances where he chose a vice president in some ways smarter and more capable than him. That's not common. So that's what's hard. If you think that the best VP pick is not really what they're looking for, right? Who knows what they're looking for? It's best for what, I guess you can say. What are the actual criteria they're trying to fill? Sometimes it's like, I'm from the North. It used to be that, right? That's why LBJ, that's how they got the fox in the henhouse. Kennedy was a Catholic Northern Democrat. He couldn't get any Southern Dixiecrats because of who he was. And so he had to go with the Texan LBJ in order to shore up the Southern Democrats. So it had nothing to do with, oh, I think LBJ is great. They hated LBJ. I mean, they actually hated him, but it was the only way they could book the ticket and go forward. So sometimes the party makes you do it. So in the case of Trump, for me, just blue sky, it's Vivek, and it's not even close. It's not even close because Vivek really should be the operational executive that is more or less the president, like Nixon was in his time, right? Nixon was correct about a great many files. You're seeing Jack Posobiec, for example, talk a lot about McCarthyism these days and how McCarthy was right about a lot of this stuff. And why was Walt Disney himself categorized as an anti-Semite? Well, he spoke at the House on American Affairs and helped McCarthy. So the brainwashing that went into McCarthyism, which affected us all. I remember you learn about McCarthy in U.S. colleges like it was the time when Hitler came to America and had an office. So this is deemed as like the worst thing that ever happened. But it turns out he was right. It turns out, according to Jack Posobiec and others, the American government was riddled with communists and Marxists, riddled. And there was every reason to go after them because apparently that's where a lot of this stuff comes from. Now, I don't know if any of that's true, but that's what Jack Posobiec says. That's what other people are saying. So the idea that Nixon was the right guy in his time and a very capable vice president is appealing when you have an old fella like Trump. And it's the same as with Eisenhower. Trump should do an Eisenhower type presidency because when he wins, what's there left to do? Like, it's dismantling the federal government. There's nothing, there's no other job, right? You can't fix most of this shit. It's not going to get fixed. Trump's not going to go out and heal American racial divisions, right? It's too much brainwashing. You've got to get rid of the brainwashing before you can get anywhere. And so his whole thing is to dismantle the hoaxocracy, and that's the best he can do. And by dismantling the hoaxocracy, it's a messy business, but you need someone who understands these types of executive branches. And that's why I think Vivek is the motosierra, the chainsaw Millet guy, right? We need the chainsaw. We need the chainsaw thing. And Millet is the chainsaw guy, and we got to get a chainsaw guy. So I think the chainsaw guy here is Vivek. Now, they say this person and that person. I don't know. I mean, I don't like any of that. The one that's boring, the governor, they say looks like George Washington, maybe. I don't know. I don't know anything about him. That would be in the old style of formula, right, where Trump is picking someone less than him so he doesn't overshine him. But don't know. Oh, bad news for you, Tommy. I think the Terrence Howard is it's not working. We're gonna make it. Yeah. But WAGME means we're all gonna make it. WAGME means we're all gonna make it. Yeah, the Terrence Howard thing is again, my initial instinct was anyone who's talking to you about patents is an idiot. It's an idiot. That's Craig Wright stuff, right? I got a patent. I'm Satoshi, right? That's idiot stuff. So my initial response to him was, "Whoa, with the patents, right? You didn't want to like your idea is so great." Now I haven't seen it, but I know that Y-Files, the Y-Files guy, he did take a look at the Terrence Howard stuff, and he said, "No way." So I still haven't gone too deep into the Terrence Howard stuff. I like the idea. It's fun to think about, but there you go. Again, anyone who's coming to me with patents, just tell them to get the fuck out of there. I only think of that because I did my law school thesis on the future of patents and intellectual property, and I said my conclusion in 2008 was it's over, it's done. We're not going to be able to do this anymore. So there you go. But we love Jack Posobiec, right? Rickster Swickster says, "Is Trump going to Nashville Bitcoin 2024?" It's the percentages are very high. That's what I'll say. That's what I'll say. That is what I'll say. Hi. All right, team. That's all I got. I shall see you all. Oh, no. I should have said this at the beginning. There might not be an episode tomorrow. I've got to go to the U.S. passport office for my youngest daughter. She just turned 5. And that's the end of her first passport. So I got to go get another one. And I have the only way I can get it in one day turned around is if I get there right away in the morning. So that would conflict with this. So I'll let you know if I'm doing one, but I'll put up a note when it's sure that I'm not, but it's pretty sure I'm not. So it'll depend on a few things, but it's pretty sure when it's not happening. So I'll let you know. So I'd say 75% it's not happening, but I'll let you know. All right. Peace.